Welcome, friends. My name is Dennis. Welcome to podcast number 7, and I'm here today with Selam, and I'm happy to meet him. So he's my friend. We know each other because we're working in the same place. So
Yes.
basically, that's why we know each other. Yeah. So Selam, you might introduce yourself, maybe.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. This is my first time being in a podcast, so I'm, I'm happy to be with you and interesting setup. My name is Selam Adaram. I was born in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and I've been serving here in Haifa, Israel, in the Baha'i World Center now for a year and a half. And this is my second time around. I was
Oh,
here.
really?
Yes.
I
I
didn't know
was
that.
here exactly 30 years ago. 30
30
years
years
and
ago.
Yes. 30 years and 1 month.
I was not born. Oh, I was born, but maybe I was
You
4
were
years.
born. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. So I'm very happy to be back and be with all the young people and make new.
We're going to talk about random stuff, basically. There's no specific thing, but last time we had a conversation with him, he was mostly interested in talking about technology and other things, basically. So maybe he can tell us his journey and how he's interested in that field.
Well, my interest in technology started since I was very young. Since I remember me and my brother trying to figure out, my father had bought a radio, and maybe I was 6 and my brother was 4. And we were very, very surprised and to see the radio working and my dad playing, like trying to find the different channels. And then when he went to work one day, we opened it up using a knife. My brother was the one who was it was brand new radio, completely trying to figure out how does it work. And we were just talking to each other, and the problem was we couldn't put it back together.
I think when you are young, there's a lot of curiosity that people have, right? So I think also the same thing happened to me. Like when I was young, I was always curious who's speaking inside the radio, right? Like that sound was like, where is it coming from? And you can find yourself just opening up a bunch of radios trying to find out who is speaking. Yeah.
So when I turned maybe, I think, 11 or 12 years old, what happened was that I became very curious, much more curious about the calculator. Because I would ask my teachers, how on God's earth does you typing those things, pressing a plus and then another number and you press equal, and it's able to calculate it without making a mistake? Like, how does it work?
Yeah.
And every teacher that I found or an adult, I would ask them, do you know how it works? Many of them said, no, I have no idea. But some of them would try to explain, but the explanation doesn't make sense. But then I would ask, but why? Like, why does it work? Somebody would say, oh, computers work like this, or the calculator works like that. So somebody, one of my father's friends told me, if you really want to understand how it works, you have to study electrical engineering in university. And so that's why I studied electrical engineering. Just I decided at that point, okay, I'm curious enough. I want to find. So I did. I studied engineering. And even when I was in university, I remember the question in my mind was, how does it work?
Still, you didn't get the answer.
No, I did. By the second year of the university, I remember it made perfect sense. And then I said, wow, this is it. But then I continued studying. So, but that's how I got started with technology. It was just so complicated that it was mysterious to me. But I just could not accept that I cannot understand it. So I wanted to really go deep enough to understand how it works. And so I think in all my life, I have still that same interest. Whenever I see something, I really want to understand how it works. So that's my beginning in this area of technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but when I first came to serve in Haifa,
Yeah.
I got a different set of ideas as well. And this was very interesting and completely new to me. And that is the idea that technology can be good or bad. And I had always heard that because in the Baha'i writings, it talks about that civilization, material civilization, if carried to excess, it can be as much a source of evil as it is of good. And people, growing up in the Baha'i community, I had heard about, all these nuclear weapons. And these are examples of our use of technology, but we use it in a way that is not moderate and for the betterment of the world, and it can be as much a source of hardship and bad outcomes as it could be potentially a source of good.
I think most of the things that are meant to be good for humans, if it's done in more without moderation, it has to be something bad to humanity.
Exactly.
And you can see over generation, right? So like, for example, if in terms of nuclear, right? So if you use nuclear in a small amount, in a controlled amount, then you have energy that can power large cities. But if you use the same nuclear knowledge, you can also kill a mass population. And I think that has been one of the challenges with humanity, right? So people discover things for betterment, but it end up being used in a bad way. And there's so many technology that you can think of that was meant to be something good, but end up being something bad.
Exactly.
It's the same thing with the agriculture, in the field of agriculture, the use of chemical manure, right?
Exactly.
So if you use in excess, then you kill all the microbes inside the soil.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. It's not that the science where we have understood the importance of nitrogen or phosphorus in the growth of a plant was harmful. The knowledge itself is very, very valuable to deeply understand the workings of nature. But then how we use it is the problem. Yes. It's this idea of lack of moderation says, okay, if I put some nitrogen into the maize field, I will get more yield. But then the person thinks, why don't I double it? Let me see how much I can keep increasing more and more and more. And at some point, it starts affecting the fertility of the soil, the long-term sustainability of the soil, the salinity, and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then also, in a more subtle way, the technological choices we make are dependent on how we develop the technologies. For who do we develop the technologies? And very often, the technologies for agriculture, for example, are developed for the big companies. And so, and the Western, or let me say more American farms, which are large flat pieces of land, or in Australia, Western Australia, for example, or the fields in Russia and Ukraine, which have large plots, flat and owned by one person that can be operated in that way. Whereas, for example, in Africa, as you know, each person, the plot of land they have is very small and may not even be regular in shape, and has trees in the middle, and there is a stone or there is other obstacles within it. But very often the technologies, for the most part, are not developed with that in mind.
No.
They are developed with the other farms in mind. And so there is also a question of justice, of how do we, what is the focus of humanity's knowledge applied to? For whose benefit is it applied to? And I think this, especially for people who are interested in technology, is not to just find what is the best tool, what is the best interesting scientific knowledge that can be applied into technology, but for who and in what way are also equally important questions that we need to address. Yeah,
That is very true. Even though we have come a long way in terms of technology, and basically, I always think that yes, technology has done some really bad stuff, but also it has made a lot of advancement in a lot of field. In terms of medical field, you'll see that it has helped to discover things that treatment that in maybe 50 years or 100 years ago we couldn't even dream of.
exactly.
One of the interesting things that I keep an eye on is the implant technology, the one that they implant chip in your brain, and if you are paralyzed or something, you can able to talk. Or this scientist who discovered Big Bang Theory, I forgot his name.
Hubble, maybe?
No, the other guy. He used to be in a wheelchair 24/7 and he couldn't talk.
Oh, okay, Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm always questioning is like, or I was very curious to know is, how does he talk? How does it work, right? Because he can hear you asking questions and then he answers it through the computer. But my question was, how was it working, right? Until recently, when I was watching this thing about the Elon Musk thing, about the Neuralink, and then I came to understand, so it was through a computer chip. But it wasn't more advanced as right now, right?
Absolutely.
But you can just see how, even right now, I was also watching a clip in China or somewhere also. They also do the same thing. There's a lady who could not even have a voice. They have an implant that they implanted a chip that helps her to speak through the computer. So you can see there's this two levels, right? So where technology has been used in a good means, and then there's a way that has been used in a very bad way.
I think most technology, I believe, people intention is always good.
Yeah.
Even the development of nuclear weapons was for a good cause, I think. If you see all the information, Albert Einstein, which is one of really most humanist scientists, was one of the people who pushed for the development of nuclear weapons because he was afraid of the Nazis acquiring a weapon and making life difficult for the rest of the world. So it was the intention, I think, for the most part, has been that we develop all technologies for something positive, at least from the point of view of the person who is developing it. The challenge comes that the framework and the principles we apply as we are developing it has to actually work. And this is kind of the main issue of technology today is, I feel, that's too large to say, but one element could be, maybe I can say, is that when we are applying the principles that we have used for hundreds of years in the past to resolve conflicts, to solve problems, but the world we live in now, new principles are needed. And unless the way that we are developing technologies matches these new principles that are needed, for the most important one being that we have to see humanity as one people. Whereas in the past we could see a nation developing, for example, weapons in order to fight another or to protect itself from another nation.
Yeah.
And then the other one doing the same, and arms race and all those things coming. It was not so much of a problem hundreds of years ago, because the reality of technological development and scientific advancement was not as big as it is now. But right now, those kind of principles of how or why we develop technologies are leading us down a very, very harmful path in all those things, in terms of armaments, in terms of environmental degradation and climate change, as well as medicine to an extent. This is a wonderful example of this brain implants that you're saying for the people who are suffering from ALS, multiple sclerosis, and so on. Stephen Hawking, by the way, the only muscle he was able to control was his mouth on his face. The only muscles left. Everything else had atrophied. And so the device that they had put was where he would just whistle a little bit on a device close to him, and he would control the keyboard that way. It took him a very long time to put even one sentence together. Compare that to the new brain implants that are able to communicate almost at natural speed, and you can see how much their life would be better for being able to communicate, and how much his work could have benefited from these technologies if they were available in his time. But the fact that he got that meant that he could continue also. Before that, he would have been completely cut off from the world.
Which is interesting, right? So I was because technology goes in is under science, so it's like science developing so many field. And in our faith, we say that science and religion has to go hand in hand, and then we find there's this technology, and then we're talking about the principles that should be guiding this kind of development. And if people are still having the same mindset of the past, using the same thoughts or way of thinking in order to make principles that guide this thing which is new, it will not work, because this new thing is past these principles that were used in the past, like 50 years ago, even 20 years ago. One of the good examples is the development of AI, just from nowhere. So it has really gone very fast from 2020 to now. You can see how fast it has gone, right?
Absolutely.
And one of the things, like, you can see how science has really progressed in just from 2000 to 2025. Just that period of time, there's a lot of things that happened compared to from, let's say, 2000 going back to maybe 1890 or something. What took them 100 years to do, it has taken a short period of 10 years or 15 years to be done within this time. And that speed that things are going needs something that can be able to give a direction that things that are being made is not made for bad, it's made for good.
Exactly. That inadvertently it doesn't backfire, as we are seeing that is happening. As we can see, like, the climate change itself is a result of our industrialization, which is a technological outcome of our development of thermodynamic principles and engines that are used to run factories, transportation vehicles, and so on, but also release a lot of chemicals or of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere to such an extent that it's already, even though it's a minute amount compared to the amount of air, is enough to change the climate patterns in our world. So
Yeah, I was just looking at. There's this guy called Hancock, someone Hancock. He does a lot of documentary about um, Ice Age, and I was looking at this documentary, and one of the things that I was saying is that in the I think the ice, we have ice in the north, right? In that Antarctica or something.
yeah, in both Antarctic in the south and Arctic Circle
Arctic
in the north.
and the
Yeah,
north.
Arctic Sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you find that it is melting at a very high speed. And one thing that in that documentary, so you know, in every religion, most of the religion, right? They talk about the flood that came and swept the planet. And in this documentary from Hancock, you could see that yes, it's true. In certain point in our human history on the world or the Earth history, there was a large amount of ice or water melted, and it swept a very large or a mass population from the planet. And there's a lot of small evidence that shows that these things actually happened. So at some point, the planet really became super hot, and a lot of ice melted and turned into water, and there's these floods that came from this kind of thing. So scientifically, this kind of stuff can be proven, right?
Yeah.
So by time. So and for people to understand like what is the meaning of climate change, because people talk about, one of the thing I was watching also, someone says, so what percentage of carbon is it in the air that affects the other percentage? So people go with percentage instead of saying, sometimes small thing has more power compared to a big thing. So even though oxygen has 21, carbon has 0.4, 0.04, or
very
some
small,
0.4,
yeah.
very small amount. But just that small amount that has been omitted can cause a lot of destruction, right?
Exactly.
And it's just how people understand things, and then other people take it in an advantage way. It's like, okay, even though we cannot stop the development of things, but we can better them, right? So instead of using coal energy or things that emit a lot of gases, you can use a better technology to produce better machinery that they don't consume or emit a lot of gases to the atmosphere. Yeah.
Very true. Moderation again. That's
Yeah.
that's the key. But in the case of climate change, it's already the climate is already changing.
Yeah.
So I think more than the mitigation of more than the actual changing of the technologies for emissions, which is changing already because solar power have become cheaper than coal. In many cases, solar power is cheaper than producing a coal power plant. Of course, coal power plants have a lot of other advantages because whereas wind and solar are dependent on the sun and the wind, the coal can give a base power at all times. Yeah, but other technologies can help with this. Battery technologies to save
power.
to store power, which are still not yet fully developed, but are getting there. And also other ways of storing energy that people are experimenting with, other sources of renewable energy as well that are less dependent on sunlight, like tide energy on the oceans and hydropower and geothermal power and so on, like which in Kenya and Ethiopia, because of the Rift Valley, there is a lot of potential there. Congo has a lot of rivers, and
Congo is interesting, right?
Yeah,
Is like a planet. It's just like a land which was blessed with a lot of good things at the same
yes,
time, a lot of bad things.
yes,
Is you can find anything in Congo. All these kind of battery, cobalt or something, you find all of them in Congo, and you find the best river that can produce. There's this guy in Kenya, even though he's a politician, but he was saying that if people can utilize the river in Congo, that river can provide electricity to 70% of Africa,
yeah.
the whole of Africa, just one river through hydro power
Hydroelectric power. Yes,
production.
yeah. And imagine if that's like there's one in Ethiopia being completed, which is the Renaissance Dam, as it's called, and it's
Is it on River
slated.
Nile?
Yes, it's on the Blue Nile, which contributes most of the water to the Nile. And
Oh, now I understand something else. Okay.
yeah, so it is it's able to produce, I think, something around 5 gigawatts of power,
Wow.
which is quite a lot for
Yeah, that's
for
a lot.
Africa.
That's a lot. Yeah.
But of course, the Congo River can produce even more if it is dammed. But also there may be other simpler solutions like solar. But also, of course, those ones will give the baseline power that is needed. That can be then the other renewable sources can supplement. Yeah.
Yes, is just interesting. Even though Africa, we are now catching up in terms of technology and other things. Right now, we find like a country like Kenya, there's a lot of innovation is happening. Ethiopia is one of the best one. Some of these things are just concentrated in a certain cities, right? So it's not throughout the countries. But you can also see, like, because of education, people now getting better education. Youth are now having better access to technology, and because of the internet connection and all this other stuff, most of the youth in Africa are now innovating a lot of things. One of good example, there's this guy from Zambia who, I don't know how he does that, but he has this technology where he harvests radioactive or something, where you harvest the energy from the air.
Oh,
Yeah. I think his name is Chibula or something.
okay. I'll look it up. That sounds
Yeah, it's very interesting. So he harvests something to do radio something. Radio, I'm not really good in terms of that. But basically he has these equipments that you don't need any to generate any, you don't need anything to generate power to them, right? So uses a low frequency kind of thing to harvest the energy from environment.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm very surprised people don't talk about that so much.
I
But
will,
I saw it on an interview,
okay.
and you can just see how people innovate, like how many people in Africa now they're coming up with these kind of ideas, and youth are more engaged now in technological discoveries. It's slow, but slowly you're getting that. Even though China is way beyond us, but in terms of, like, for example, if you look at Congo, if Congo could have a stable government, then it'll be easier for the youth from Congo to have access to these minerals, which they could use to develop different types of technology and in the country, and help in maybe in terms of field, in different field, maybe agriculture, maybe medical, or any other field,
I agree that education is the key.
Yeah.
Education, I think, is what we have to really work on a lot more. Technologies in terms of internet, I think, on balance, I don't know if this
is not properly.
It's not been a positive for Africa so far.
Yeah.
It's led us to polarization through social media, which has made our governments and our societies more unstable. And it's just it's multiplied all the small negative things that were there. It has been a magnified, and has brought a lot of suffering for the people.
I think yeah,
go ahead.
I think on my side, how I say it is that because so I'll give an example in Kenya. So in Kenya before 2000, right? So the population that had literacy in Kenya, it was around 40%, right? And then between 2000 to now, the literacy has gone to higher because
Oh,
yeah. So like for example, in terms of access to education in East Africa, 90% or 95% of Kenya population have gone past high school.
wow.
Yeah, so
That's great.
you can really look at
Mm.
it. Now the
Yeah.
problem with that, and now it comes to internet. The problem with that, you have a large population of people who have gone through school and they're well educated, but the chances of them to have opportunity to have work is not there. So
Exactly.
people don't have, they're not innovating, they're not in the called industrialization, they're not, the industries are not there to make
Yeah.
these things work, right?
Absolutely.
And because of that now people use internet in a way that to show their frustration and to, because there's no, like
Okay.
we have the same like actually in Africa internet is quite expensive compared to other
Yeah.
countries, right? But
Yeah.
people still sacrifice their money
Yes.
in order to view their their frustration. And that's
Yeah.
the thing about the youth is that
Mm.
if if youth cannot be given a way forward, it's the same thing about principles and all
Yeah.
this kind of stuff, being
Exactly.
educated and being told, hey, government does not provide work, then you have to find a way. Government has to provide the environment. But now
Yeah.
if the government does not provide environment, then it creates this time bomb that is called youth.
Exactly.
And that's the problem, in my own opinion. And that time bomb can go on anytime.
Exactly.
And these people, you can, because they're well, like for example, I'll just talk about Kenya, because the population in Kenya is well versed with, like they've gone past high school, people are really having degrees and all this kind of stuff. They're not a population that you can come and say they're not learned, right? So they're well learned, they have, if it's education thing, they're good at it. But it's just that because there's no enough opportunity for to take, like the government cannot take all the population in and give work to them, then this creates this, people go to internet to show, you know, instead of airing positive things, then you find a lot of what you see online is just the negative part. It doesn't mean the Western world doesn't have it, they do have it.
Yeah.
But the only that the focus in Africa is just focused on these negative things about us rather than the positive things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's, I completely agree with that idea. More fundamentally,
Mm-hmm.
there is two types of education. I
Yeah.
think.
Yes.
I think also in the Baha'i writings,
Yeah.
it kind of shares this idea.
Mm-hmm.
The fundamental education is spiritual education,
Yes.
and then the secondary one is material education.
Mm.
If that spiritual education is not
there.
there, that material education is actually harmful. A person who doesn't have the qualities, the spiritual qualities of sacrifice, service, kindness to his fellow man, him being able to be given the tools, even when they're successful and they're able to do that, it's not really of benefit to society. A person who has a PhD could be as much harm to the society as any other kind of cause of natural forces that might be harmful. So I think the first thing that we really have to focus on is, are we educating our population to have the qualities that are useful to a citizen of Africa? That a person who is not egotistical, who is able to use whatever means that he has, not for selfish desires or for selfish aggrandizement, but for the betterment of his family, his parents, his children,
Mm-hmm.
his neighbors, his fellow citizens. If we have that, then it's good. Then secondary, once that is there, we can think about how do we give the skills, technological know-how to this person to be able to go for the betterment of his community. However, in that way also, I think we have a long way to go. I think a lot of our material education in Africa is not up to standard.
That is true.
It just is not. A person can have a PhD and not know what to do. Like, it's just doing things that are not actually systematically improving the well-being of the community, or a high school, or a master's, or bachelor, or whatever it is, or secondary, primary education. I think we have to make the education more practical, more beneficial, learn how to benefit society in ways that the technologies can be developed indigenously. Being able to operate a mobile phone made in China is not really the same as knowing how to build a
Try to
mobile
build
phone.
it, yes.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, so which one do we want to teach someone? Is it like how to operate the machines that they bring from outside,
Or how to
or
create them.
how to create them? However long it takes, we're much better off getting the technology indigenously developing. Even if it takes us longer, it is actually will be developing according to the needs of our societies, rather than according to
We buy,
what
bring it.
other priorities might exist somewhere else, and we develop them. But still, before all that, again, I want to emphasize that our spiritual education has to come first. Our moral, ethical, spiritual, which are, for me, all those terms mean the same thing, meaning our spiritual, meaning that we have a spirit. It's not at the level of our body, but at the level of our ethical and kind of higher standards that we put ourselves to. And once we get those parts, material and the spiritual education happening, the most important resource of our continent is actually the people.
Yes.
The children, the young youth, those are actually the thing that the main forces that can actually develop it. It's not money, it's not know-how, it's not any of those things, but actually the creativity and the vision of the people themselves.
About education. So what happens is that the way I see it is, you go to school, you're not really going to learn, you're going to cram, right? So
Yeah.
to pass exam. So your purpose is not to learn, your purpose is to how much can you retain in your brain and then bring it out when the papers come, and then you, whatever you answer to it, you basically you have passed. So you're not learning, you're just cramming basically. And our president was saying that the way the system was designed during that time was that it rewarded people who could cram more, you get more certificate, and those who couldn't cram, you're failure, so you become a failure in the society. And every year, every time that the government was announcing the results, a lot of people could kill themselves or being disowned by their families because they haven't really gotten to what their parents wanted. And our president was like, this is very unfair, right? So it doesn't treat people to capacity that they have. What it does, the education basically wants you to give them what they want. So they don't help you to nurture that capacity that you have. And then introduced another system whereby at that time, now it has changed a lot since he left, but what his idea was that you're being judged on what you know the best. So like for example, if you know science, mathematics or something, that's what you're being judged with. It's not all of them together, and then if you fail one of it, then you're a failure. So introduce practical based kind of education. Now what is lacking is people we don't know how to intertwine the two, like spirituality and material education, into one. And that's a good question, is that the only thing that more, like I'll talk in Kenya, we have something called religious education. So if you're Muslim, you go through a religious thing. If you're Christian, you go through Bible. Now the problem is that you're only repeating what has been written. So you're not generating new thoughts, new way of infusing the spirituality into the material. So it's only one subject, and then the rest of them is just materialistic. So how to mix the true in each subject, to see that principle of spirituality. Common things, like for example, when people think about spirituality, they think about, oh, I need to pray or something. No, just qualities, human qualities, those things that make you human is what we call spirituality. So being kind, all this kind of stuff, right? Having faith, being kind, generous, all this kind of stuff to be integrated into our system is the problem. Because in Africa we don't lack religious activities. If in every town you go, you find how many churches?
Exactly.
Hundreds, right?
Yeah.
So we don't lack religious activity. What we lack is how to infuse those principles, religious principles, into our education system, and to have a society where it doesn't think about them but think about us, all of us.
Exactly. I think you've hit the nail on the head, because the key of spiritual education is our behavior. It's not how strongly we take our religion against the other religion.
Yeah.
That's the opposite of religion. The purpose of religion is to unite people, to empower people, not to divide them or to create disharmony between people. It's the opposite of the purpose of religion. So the spiritual education we're talking about is exactly that. It's about a Christian being the best behavior of using the Christ-like behavior of love, of kindness, of generosity, of forgiveness, that all the scriptures, whether Christian or Muslim or Baha'i scriptures, show. How do I apply it? I read the scriptures. I have to read the scriptures first to understand what is it saying. Then, after I understand it, how do I apply it to my life today in everything that I do? Then on the third, then I can think, how does it affect how I think, how I understand the different concepts of society? When we are applying the scriptures in those, it doesn't matter whether someone is a Muslim, is applying the Quran, or a Christian applying the Bible, or a Baha'i applying the Baha'i writings, or another religion, or even the traditional beliefs that we have in Africa. We find the same result. We will find that people will be much more productive, much more harmonious, much more able to create a more prosperous society.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I'm very happy to chat with you, Dennis. This was fun.
Yeah.
I thank you very much. Sorry, I didn't know how to operate this device a little bit.
No, it's fine. It's fine. That was great. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate you giving me 1 hour or more than 1 hour of your time, because I know you're always busy.
My pleasure.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope we can have another chat another time.
I look forward to it.
Okay, thank you.
Right.